Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Happy holidays. We've got a great topic for you today. Some of us have been traveling, so let's do it. Pilots, flight attendants, frequent flyers of Reddit. What is the creepiest or most mysterious thing that has happened to you while in the air? A little not safe for work. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We saw an artillery strike flying over Afghanistan on an overnight on the way from London Heathrow to HCMC. The missus had the window seat and was looking intently out of the window. I asked her what she was looking at and she replied, "Lightning." I looked over her shoulder and could see someone getting the good news in the middle distance. Nothing else looks like it, and it's nothing like films and telly. It lasted 6 minutes, which was huge in artillery terms. I'd seen artillery before at night, but never from 10,000 meters. On a transatlantic flight to Germany, in business class, dead asleep, wake up to announcement asking if there were any military or police on the plane, please come forward. I was former military, looked to my right and see two guys beating a guy on the ground next to me. They needed to know how to use flex cuffs, basically zip ties. The guy apparently got drunk and really belligerent, started to rush the cockpit. This was post 9/11. He spent the next 2 hours of the flight on the floor of my row. Lots of very scary German police came in to take him off when we landed. The creepiest thing that happened to me was having a young male flight attendant keep coming back to my row to check the emergency door, which I was seated next to. He did it at least 5 times during the flight, and he always managed to get way into my personal space. It was a late night flight. The lights were low, and I was the only one in that row. Every time I'd try to go to sleep, he'd be there. I did report it after the flight. Don't know if anything ever happened. 2 for you. Was flying from San Francisco to Sydney in a rear-facing business seat. Somewhere over the middle of the Pacific at late night, the seatbelt light goes on and an announcement for flight attendants to take their seats. I look out the window and see nothing but black. Then I remember we're flying backwards, so I look forward and see a line of thunderstorms as far as I could see. Crazy lightning. For the next 30-ish minutes, we danced between the storms, turning back and forth to plot a careful path through the line, seeing lightning arc above, below, to the sides, and never hit a single bump. It was totally surreal. Another flying out of Patagonia, Argentina, hit some pretty significant mountain turbulence for the first hour of the flight. I'd been in some significant turbulence before, but this was something else. I was in the far back of a 737 and just watched the airframe torque back and forth. The luggage bins were torquing up and down, left, up, right, down, and vice versa, by at least a foot from my vantage point. Flying from the UK to Australia was over Germany, roughly, and over the intercom came the automated announcement, "Please prepare for a sea landing. Please prepare for a sea landing." There was a few minutes of confusion before they came on again and explained an air stewardess had pressed the wrong button. Not gonna lie, I shat a bit. Totally justifiable. You could shit a little if that happened without anyone judging. On a flight from Tokyo to LA, an American guy started pacing the aisle of the plane and then went on a tangent right next to me about the Japanese children's show Man and 9/11. It was so bizarre, and I remember it almost word for word. He was yelling, "I'm not going to hurt anyone, but a 5-year-old boy watching Man just told me that 9/11 was an inside job. No, 9/11 was real. Real people died. 3/11 was real. Man is brainwashing children and is racist." A lot of people on the plane just heard a man yelling 9/11, which is near the top of the list of things you don't want to hear on an airplane. The guy was moved to the back of the plane and watched by flight attendants the rest of the flight. I remember a pilot going back and explaining to him that the airport police would be waiting for him when we landed. He was taken off first, and I just remember him being surrounded and questioned by about 8 police officers when I got off the plane. Deep sleep at flight from JFK to London. Low passengers flight. I felt a tap on my shoulder, followed by a whispering, "Wake up, look at the front." I woke up and saw they were serving drinks. I took a coffee and went back to sleep again. It felt like it was for real, but I was still dreaming or sleeping. Then a horrible nightmare hit me. A collision with another plane and people who were sitting in front of me got injured by flames, etc. They woke me because I was yelling help over and over again. It was just a nightmare, but felt awful real. I had a flight from JFK to Frankfurt, Germany on Lufthansa. Prior to boarding, I went to a bar that was near our gate, and there was a very strange-looking man sitting at the bar. Best way I could describe him was he looked like a mannequin, or what you would imagine an android would look like. He was older, super thin, perfect hair that looked fake, and his skin looked like plastic. He sat at the bar with perfect posture and hardly moved at all other than to lift his glass to his mouth. It turned out that weirdo guy was also on my flight. Everything was going along normal as we prepared for departure and started our taxi out until the pilot announced that we needed to return to the gate. After we got to the gate, I saw some police officers come on the plane and could see that they were dealing with an issue in the first class area. After about 10 minutes or so, I saw the weirdo guy from the bar stand up and leave the plane with the police. After we took off and got up to cruise, I went to use the restroom, and there were a couple of flight attendants talking, so I asked what had happened. They said that the weirdo guy was not verbally responding to the attendant in first class, and she was getting a very creepy vibe from the guy. The pilot came to try and ask the guy some questions, and he just sat there and stared forward and did not respond. This being post 9/11 New York City, they were not taking any chances, so they had the guy removed from the plane. Air traffic control here. One time, while on clearance delivery in the tower, I just give people the instructions on what sky roads to take to their destination, nothing more. So, someone called me up on the air and spoke unintelligibly. I know my position and I know what to listen for, and so I had no clue what the guy was saying or asking for. None of what I thought I heard added up, so I responded, "Last call, be advised, you are up my airport's clearance delivery." After a pause, the voice says, what was that? So I say it again, slower and clearer. He goes, "I do not know what you're saying." Baffled, I explain the situation to the tower supervisor, who seems just as clueless. There isn't really a protocol for this sort of thing. So I say it one last time. "Last call, be advised, you are currently on my AP's clearance delivery. Check your frequency." He didn't respond again. Yeah, not really creepy, but certainly unusual. I wonder if he figured out his problem, or if it was just like a trucker or someone screwing with a ham radio that stumbled onto my channel. He wasn't using prescribed phraseology, so I'm not sure if it even was a pilot. I was on a fly fishing trip in northern British Columbia with my dad and uncle. We were in a small bush plane with pontoons. It was about 45 years ago. I was quite young. I'm sorry, I don't recall the names of the lake. The landing was uneventful. We flew in mid-July and lived in a rustic cabin lakeside for about 6 weeks. It was extremely hot all summer, and the drought and declining water levels made the lake shrink. When the pilot came back on pickup day, he circled the lake a few times, then left without landing. We had no means of communication, so we were confused. He came back later that day in a different plane, landed in the water, and taxied to the dock. He was extremely concerned about having enough room to take off again. We loaded the plane, and he taxied out, then backed up into a corner. It was the first time I was in a plane going backwards. We roared off, but about 3/4 of the way he aborted and slammed on the brakes. We tried a few more times, but he, in my opinion, I was 12, and did not grasp the enormity of the situation, chickened out every time. He taxied back to the dock, and we had to unload all of our gear onto the dock and try again. But again, he chickened out. We went back to the dock, and my dad and I got out, and he tried with just my uncle. Again, he backed almost onto the beach and roared off. The way the lake bent, you couldn't see the other end from where we were standing on the dock, but we did see the plane finally get airborne. As I was quite young and did not grasp the enormity of the situation, I thought it was great fun. I was also due to go back to school soon, so the thought of being stranded out there with just the two of us was quite exciting, but he came back for me. I remember the pilot asked me to shift my weight around in the small cockpit during the takeoff run. He did the same from the pilot's seat, so as to make the plane rock back and forth. The idea being to break the pontoons free from the surface tension. It might have that I realized what a dangerous situation it was. We spent several summers there until my dad's health declined too much. It was a great adventure. First of all, you had an awesome childhood. 6 weeks in the Canadian wilderness, fly fishing, and just living away from technology. Awesome, man. Very cool, and glad you all lived from that scary flight. As an unaccompanied minor, I sat next to a man and his mentally disabled son. The son was pawing at me and calling me mommy the entire flight. He must have been about 16 and I was maybe 11. I was really weirded out, and the father just kept apologizing but not doing anything about it. If it had happened to me now, I would have been a bit more chill, but as a child, I really didn't know what to do and wished that a flight attendant would have noticed and moved me to another seat. Frequent flyer, here are a couple ones. I swear that's not mine. During a transatlantic, I dropped my phone in the seat. Those reclining business class seats have plenty of gaps where a phone can easily slip through, and it happens quite frequently. It's not a problem as long as you don't move the seat. Just get the flight attendant to get it out. That was exactly what I did, and the FA opened the maintenance hatch of the seat. She had this super weird look all of a sudden, and did not only produce my phone, but also the biggest butt plug I had seen in my whole life. I got some very weird looks from the crew after that. Russian roulette. Flying into Berlin, TMF, in the mid-80s, I suddenly spotted a couple of MiG-29s in close proximity, not sure if NVA or Soviet. With Able Archer 83 and Reagan's poor mental state still on everybody's mind, it was well known that the Soviets had become ultra-paranoid and shooting down airliners had happened in the past. Oh my god, we're all gonna die. Last flight into Kai Tak, before an incoming typhoon. Flying into Hong Kong used to be an ass-puckering experience, yeah, even on a good day. But that approach was the one and only time in thousands of flights where I thought I wasn't going to survive the day. Frequent flyer here. Around 4 or 5 years ago, on a business trip to a foreign country where I took a local flight, one of the co-passengers was a total whack job. He exchanged my aisle seat with supposedly his window seat. Another passenger comes by and claims I'm in his seat. Turns out, this guy who I exchanged seats with was seated a few rows in front and exchanged his seats with a couple of people before me, lol. This was just the beginning. As the security demo starts, one of the attendants comes by and stands next to the very seat I had, where Mr. Weirdo is seated, and opens the food tray, keeps the belt and other demo stuff on, and starts the demo. As the demo is going on, the guy starts handing her stuff from the tray, and she's trying to stay in character for the safety demo while trying not to giggle, and she's blushing. At this point, I'm thinking, bruh, got game, lol. Before takeoff, I'm looking outside the window as an aviation enthusiast, and I hear phone camera clicks. Turn around, this guy's taking my pics. I'm like, dude, what the F you doing? And he shows me my pic. Creepy. I at once told him to just delete them without escalation, as I was too tired and just wanted to be done with this flight and head back to my hotel. As the plane took off, guy takes out a golden anonymous kind mask and wears it around. At this point, I am thinking he's just fooling around with his friend in the middle seat, with whom he seemed cozy. I asked the middle seat guy about him, and well, middle seat guy didn't know shit about him as well. Now I am curious as F. So, I try to engage in small talk, and I ask what the guy did. Student? He replies, nah, I teach. I ask what he taught. He replies, freaked me the F out. I teach people how to live, and I'm going to go and teach the pilot how to live as well. At this point, half of me is excited for something adventurous, and the other half is scared shitless, thinking, might be my last day alive. I made myself physically and mentally prepared with a plan. As soon as he left to go wherever he went to, I pressed the attendant button and told them along with the middle seat passenger the whole story. And we had to add we didn't know who the F this guy was, just in case, LMAO. Next thing you know, guy is talked back to his seat. A built guy who I presume was the local air marshal came by and spoke to him for quite a while and sat behind us. And we got priority landing 45 minutes earlier at an airport that keeps you in a landing pattern for half an hour. All in all, not exchanging my seats with anyone ever again. And I still don't know who that guy was. what he actually wanted, and what happened to him after. We'd been in the air about 20 to 30 minutes, and suddenly the whole plane effing quit. Like, the damn thing effing quit. Things went black. Stewardess hit the roof along with half the beverage cart, felt my ass leave the seat. I had my seatbelt on. The masks fell from the ceiling. In reality, it was probably 3 or 4 seconds, but it felt damn near like 10 minutes. Then everything went back to normal. We had an emergency landing at this little-ass airport. I don't know what happened, but the pilot only came over the intercom once and flat said, "We will be making an emergency landing shortly." And the way he said it, I legit started praying, because you could tell he was scared. It was quick, exasperated, and to the point. We landed safely with no further issues. Thankfully, the little airport had a restaurant. Some dude in first class bought us all a round of drinks. It was 9 a.m., and I think everyone proceeded to have a drink that morning. One of the stewardesses quit on the spot and drank with us. They never did explain what happened, other than they were going to have to fly us out on all different flights, etc., etc. Lots of people ended up carpooling together. I had to get drunk the first time I got back on the plane after that. I had to drink. There are a few things more nerve-wracking than having an in-air or mid-flight incident, landing, and then having to get back on another flight. But yeah, it's worthy of a drink and cool guy buying everyone around. Okay, airline pilot here. Loads of little things happen here and there, and basically 100% of them are completely explainable. There is no spook. Having said that, I saw something which made me stop and think for a long time the other week. Flying back east over the Atlantic, about 0400 Geneva Mean Time or so, and we start to notice these lights. They're between 2 and 5 degrees over the horizon, and they're moving south to north, but not all on the same track. Most are the same speed, but some are faster, some slower. They get brighter or dimmer, and we watch them for a good 90 minutes. Even got the crew up to have a gander. Every few minutes, you might see a very faint one going north or south, but 99% of these lights were moving south to north. Completely not spooky. They're clearly LEO satellites, maybe Starlink, catching the sunlight from over the horizon. And then, there's no way to explain this better. One of them turned around. It was the faintest in a little group of 3 moving north-ish. When it literally just stopped, its friends carried on, and then it started moving south. We were not only the only aircraft crossing the Atlantic that night. This reversal was seen by at least 2 of the other crews we were in contact with on the 12345. We were already talking about the lights, funnily enough. Now, I'm a hard skeptic, so my opinion is that we just got super lucky with timing, and as one satellite was traveling south to north, there was another traveling north to south. They just happened to cross paths where we were looking, and the first one dimmed just as the second one caught sunlight. Not one satellite changing direction, but 2 crossing over. I think I can explain the 2 to 3 seconds it looked like it stood still. There was some atmospheric effect due to the light being low to the horizon, and 2 lights moving opposite direction end up briefly looking like one brighter and stationary light because of distortion and scattering. Still, it effed with us all for a few good minutes. Or UFO?